Two. First order of business is a great pleasure to recognize our former colleague and current friend, Tana Thomas, who was a member of this board for many years. Tana, could you come up, please? Right up here, all the way up. Tana, we've got a resolution here from your colleagues with, I'm going to say, about a dozen whereases here that I'm not going to go through, but simply to say that you have been a tremendous asset to this board, to this system. I can tell you personally, you were a great help to me when I came on this board. You have so many years of knowledge, not only being on this board, but actually being in the system and giving your heart, your soul, everything to the community college system. I think all of us have learned a great deal from you. And just to tell you, we miss you greatly on this board. We thank you for your service and demand a guarantee that we're going to see you every once in a while.
Absolutely. I'm going to keep my eye on you.
Okay. Good. Okay, well, I would also like to ask both Danny Hawkins and member Barbara Davis Lyman to say a couple words as well. Danny?
Thank you, Scott. Tana, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over our 17 years of history. My greatest accolade is I can say you're a personal friend, and you know me well enough to know I don't say that lightly. But more importantly than that, you are a great role model for classified professionals around this state, and we all need to live up to your standard that you've set. And I want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Hi, Tana. Boy, are we going to miss having wine with you at night.
I can come back for that part.
Actually, from the moment you hit this board, you hit the ground running and never stopped. And your responsibility, you felt such a strong responsibility to represent all classified throughout the state. And you did what a classified do in supporting board members, but in supporting all kinds of people across the college communities. And you did it not only with loyalty and expertise, but you did it with love, because the bottom line for you is what classified say. It's about the students. It's about how can we support people who are supporting students? How can we support students? You brought such a loud and strong and proud voice for classified on this board and throughout the state. And I personally am happy that you have touched my life. And I know it's not over. Thank you, Tana.
Don't make me cry.
Okay, we won't make you cry. But I would like to say that I had 23 years in community colleges prior to entering the legislature. And in those 23 years, I gained such a respect for classified staff. I saw them when they stayed late. I saw them when they did the jobs that weren't necessarily calling everyone's attention to it, but they made the operation of a college go. They were the ones who were there when the doors opened. They were the ones who took care of the computers and all the rest of it. And they were the ones who even swept the floors when they needed to be done. So there's no way to overestimate the value of classified staff. And so when I came here about 3 years ago, I thought of what a powerful representative Tana Thomas was, because in her own way, whenever we would be discussing items that have to do with California Community College, she would point out whenever she felt like that the classified needed a voice in that particular thing. She made it clear. So she was a tremendous board member, but also a great representative for the thousands of classified staff that serve the 112 community colleges in California. So thank you very much, Tana Thomas, for your work.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Should I hold this thing here?
Yeah.
Wait. Let's move these chairs. You don't want chair photos.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Could I say a minute? Just
Sure.
I don't know that I need to sit. This is a little
Yeah.
a little more prestigious spot than I had in mind. Gosh, and look. Maybe we should get a picture of that too.
I think it's a coup.
There you go. There you go. No, I just wanted to say briefly, because I know there's a full agenda, but I didn't want to depart without saying what an honor and a pleasure it has been for me to serve not only on the Consultation Council, but also on the Board of Governors. And I have had the opportunity to work with some incredible, extraordinary people during that time. And I just really, many of them are here, also many in the audience, and I really want to say thank you to all of you for your support and your friendship. It's been an honor to represent classified employees. Thank you for your kind words. I honestly said I've done my best. I tried to always keep students in mind and also the contributions of classified employees. And I know that some of the things you'll be talking about, all of us throughout California will be talking about, but the decision makers and leaders, especially student success. And I do hope that you will always remember that classified employees make a tremendous contribution to student success. And it's important to keep that contribution in mind. So thank you. Mr. President. Thank you all.
Okay, members, a couple of announcements, some new information on or about 11 o'clock. The Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, will be coming here to talk to us about Common Core standards. And I think we're going to find out shortly the timing of our memorandum with the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we may be here a little bit later than I thought. So let's move along. Let's see. Our item 5.1, community college contributions to jobs and the economy. Vice Chancellor, the show is yours.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. So, as I explained yesterday, hopefully today is our first in a series of conversations focused on the topic of jobs and the economy, and more importantly, community college contribution to jobs and the economy. And my hope is that these forums give you a chance to provide counsel on our strategies, as I see that the possibility is not only for us as a system to be essential to this equation, but potentially to be catalytic in the recovery, not only for our states, but our regions and our local communities. A key organizing principle that I alluded to yesterday was this idea that in time of limited resources, we have to set priorities. And so to have priority sectors and industry clusters will be part of a framework that we'll talk about. And just as we were able to mobilize in the healthcare discussion that I shared yesterday, what we're looking at is what else must we do to be that organized? Where else must we be that organized? in order to be able to mobilize our resources and investments so that the collective impact is greater with regards to jobs and the economy. So today's focus is in the area of small business and exports. And small business, I recognize, is embedded into all sectors, but without focus, one may actually overlook this sector's role in job creation. Some statistics for you here. California has over 3.3 million small businesses. Small businesses comprise 99.2% of the state's employers. Small businesses generated 65% of net new jobs over the past 17 years. Small businesses made up 97.5% of all identified exporters and produced 31% of export value in the fiscal year 2008. So, it is possible that you can discuss sectors without a focus on small business, but it's easy to miss their value when when the conversation gets too steered to the big players in each of these sectors. So I brought here for you two experts, two guests from the field, to share their respective models and what's working. First is Jeff Williamson, over to my far left. He is an Economic and Workforce Development Program State Initiative Director, the EWD program that you approved the budget of yesterday. He's a leader for our international business assistance offices throughout California and has over a decade worth of international business and export experience in over 50 countries, and will be sharing with you a program that we're running called Exporting Made Easier. It's sort of a shorthand phrase for that, which Member Perez is an advisor to. We also have Luann Bynum, who is Vice President of Economic and Resource Development at Long Beach Community College District. She has over 25 years of experience in public and private sectors, linking education and training to business and industry, and was named 2004 Woman of the Year by the then California Assembly member Alan Lowenthal of 54th District. So just a lot of connections here. All right, so I've given them a heads up on a series of hard questions that I would throw at them. So let's start first by, with both of you, give us a 3 to 4 minute overview of your model and why it portends to create jobs and help students, and give us any outcomes so far.
Excuse me, Vice Chancellor, yeah. Mr. Williamson, I wasn't quite sure. Who are you with? Economic work? Are you part of our system?
Yes, I am.
Okay, in what capacity?
We have the Economic and Workforce Development Program under Vice Chancellor Tonquin Libbins.
Okay, so you're in the Vice Chancellor's office?
That's correct.
I see. Okay.
And we have a system of grants that are sent out to community colleges to perform work in certain areas.
Thank
He's an extension, not directly an employee of the Vice Chancellor's office. He's funded through a grant.
I see.
Your EWD grants, yes.
Okay.
All right. So give us a 3 to 4 minute overview of your models, please. Luann.
Good morning, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to do this, and thank you to the Vice Chancellor as well. I've been at Long Beach City College for about 14 years. We've had a very robust workforce development division at the college, but a few years ago we realized that with the boom and bust cycles of the economy and the compelling need to put our students who are not only getting their education but also the workers who are being trained in our workforce development programs to get them jobs, that we had to devote some attention to business development in our regional economy. So we intentionally and strategically focused on building a business model that provided technical assistance to our regional businesses. We had contracts with the Port of Long Beach to do international trade development. We had business development contracts with the city. In 2005, we were awarded the Los Angeles Area Network for Small Business Development Centers. That's an SBA-funded loan. We run that program in 3 counties in Los Angeles, Ventura, and Santa Barbara County. We have 8 different centers and 33 satellites. It took us a couple of 3 years to mature that activity. In 2010, we partnered with Goldman Sachs in the 10,000 Small Business Program. Goldman Sachs Foundation has put $500 million around the country into community colleges. There'll be about 15 of them. We were the second site to launch for the program. We will be running a cohort, 4 cohorts a year, and over the course of 5 years, train 1,000 businesses in that program. That program's going well. We're on our 4th cohort now. This year, we were selected by the American Association of Community Colleges and the Mott Foundation to participate in the Virtual Incubation Network. And that project is designed to develop entrepreneurship and business incubation strategies, develop toolkits for community colleges to be used across the nation. And of course, we're going to share that with our sister colleges here in California. But the point being is that we very intentionally built a platform to be able to work with businesses to ensure that the students that we were educating, the workers that we were training, had the jobs they needed. Our outcomes have been significant. We have, over the course of the last 4 years in the network, we've trained a little under 47,000 people in business development skill development to run their businesses. We've started 1,000 businesses. We've probably retained about 4,900 jobs in the region that we serve. We've had a capital infusion in that region of about $153 million and an increase in sales about $150 million. So we're very happy to be able to have that technical expertise. It took a few years to do it, but nevertheless, it helps us be able to ensure that the people that are coming out of our schools and coming out of our training programs have really good, high-quality jobs.
Well, good morning, members of the Board of Governors and Chancellor Scott. Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for the invitation to join today's meeting. The Centers for International Trade Development Initiative have been part of the Community Colleges Economic and Workforce Development Program for about 20 years now. And this program was launched back in 1989 when there was a really strong need to train staff-level workers on how to handle import and export logistics, as well as finance, as well as international marketing. And so this initiative has focused its efforts on educating the workforce in these areas that are the biggest part of the growth of our economy, has been in the past 20 or 30 years, and the next 20 or 30 years it'll be the same. The program that I'm here to talk about is the Exporting Made Easier, what we call the California State Trade and Export Promotion Program. And we applied for that through the community colleges. This is a resource that the Small Business Administration has made available to states to apply for and fund export promotion activities for small businesses in their respective states. It is part of the President Obama's Jobs Act of 2010, and its primary focus is to help existing firms export and help firms that aren't exporting get into exporting. And this is a really critical issue for our country. As you know, we have a huge trade deficit of approaching about $600 billion a year. And if we were to try to right-size that, and actually erasing the trade deficit, one of the national agenda items, that would create about 3 to 4 million jobs on its own. So exporting is a job creator that is critical for the future success of this country and this state. The way that the California STEP program is set up, or the Exporting Made Easier, what we call the California STEP program, is we have put together a network of organizations across the state, including 8 community colleges, the Centers for International Trade Development at those 8 community colleges, the California Chamber of Commerce, the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the World Trade Center Association of San Diego, and our U.S. Department of Commerce and Small Business Administration partners. And our primary focus is to help prepare companies, small companies, help engage them in export activities, and this would mean taking them on trade missions abroad so they can meet with potential customers, as well as bringing buyers from overseas markets here to California so that they can transact business directly with the companies. So how does this create jobs? As these companies engage customers abroad, they're able to generate additional revenue and grow their plant size. In order to facilitate the new business, they're going to need to hire workers and train them. So for each $1 billion in exports, and California exports about $140 billion a year, for each $1 billion in exports, this sustains or creates an additional 5,000 to 6,000 jobs. So our effort really is focused on getting those firms to export so that then they have the capacity actually to hire new staff. And our job is to train them.
So, Luann, the Goldman Sachs gave out 2 grants to California community colleges, as you mentioned. Now, one is sputtering, the other one is generating jobs and growing revenues. What are the key success factors that must exist to replicate and scale your model? What is it about your success that's unique?
Well, I had mentioned that we spent a few years building an architectural structure that we could respond when we had these kind of opportunities to, as they came along, and had the technical assistance to do that. We had the Small Business Development Network for the Los Angeles area. Our president, President Oakley, was approached by the American Association of Community Colleges and Goldman Sachs to solicit our interest in that program. And we had to turn it around literally in the course of about 6 weeks because they had a launch time set for last year, in June of last year. Just real briefly, the program for us, we have 40 people in a class. It's an 80-hour to 100-hour class. It's fully cost-covered for those participants. Probably at the end of the 5-year period, Goldman Sachs will have put in about $15 million into the Long Beach program alone, and we will have trained about 1,000 businesses. The other factor, though, that worked for us at the college was that we're not unique, but I think there's a few colleges like this, but there's not too many. We have all of the resources and assets for workforce and economic development under one administrative umbrella. So that includes community education, contract education, Perkins funds, grants, economic development, workforce development, and anything else that kind of falls into that bailiwick. That gives us the opportunity to be able to leverage opportunities, resources, and reduce duplication in what we're doing. So it creates an economies of scale for us. We have an incredibly talented staff of economic development practitioners that work in the area. They're energetic, they're passionate, they're opportunistic, and I think that helps the college as well because they work very closely as a team. But I think probably the most critical important factor is really leadership at our campus. I'm fortunate to have a boss that is an economic development practitioner as a CEO. He's worked in the private sector. He delivers the message and ties the message about education and training to job creation. And that makes a huge difference for us because it brings the entire college into alignment in terms of being able to focus laser-like on these kinds of activities. Our Board of Trustees just recently did their board goals for the year. They have 3 board goals. First one is student success, and that translates into our College Promise and our Promise Pathways initiative at the college. The second one is career technical education, economic development, workforce development linked together for viability in our regional economy. And the third is financial stability. So that kind of leadership alignment really does help us be able to focus and brings the college into alignment, brings our career technical programs into alignment. We're fully integrated into the college. We are not a standalone operation. We work very closely with academic affairs and all 44 of our career technical programs. So those kinds of things I think really help, but it's taken us a few years to get there.
So Jeff, some may wonder, why are community colleges even involved in this Exporting Made Easier program? Give us an example of what are of either a stackable credential or a type of education or training that facilitates the ability of these businesses to export.
Okay, well, that's an excellent question. Thank you for that. A lot of the we carry out a lot of programs in the field to provide short-term training for businesses and for individuals. Actually, we train the individuals, and they just happen to work in the business, on, first of all, how to identify international customers, how to communicate with them, how to handle logistics of shipping products to other countries, how to handle customs issues, how to handle the legal aspects of contracting, international sales, and ultimately the financing of those sales. And these are typically done in settings in cooperation with Small Business Administration, U.S. Department of Commerce, the Export-Import Bank of the United States, or for that matter, the California Department of Food and Agriculture when we focus on food and ag exports. Now, in the short run, what we're doing here is we are training staff-level folks and managers how to build the capacity in their firms to be able to take advantage of this business. In the longer run, what we are doing, what we have been doing, is we are developing curriculum that is then infused into the classrooms. So you have over 66 international business classes across the community college system that are a result of and were incubated by these short-term training programs on the front end. So our short-term goal is really to focus on getting the businesses and those employees ready for an order tomorrow. Our longer term is to build the capacity of the community colleges to train the next workforce of tomorrow to be able to compete in the global economy.
Okay, so I'm going to close out with one question each, and then I'll open it up to the board, should you have questions or thoughts. So, Luann, tell us why, again, how does it help students when community colleges have a catalytic role in job creation?
Well, California community colleges, I think, have about 2.6 million students. We're the primary driver of workforce development in the state of California. We are diligently working to educate. We are diligently working to innovate the workforce with incumbent workers and new entrants. And the job creation piece is absolutely critical. I just read that 63%, I just read this yesterday, 63% of the new jobs that are projected in the next 5 years are sitting at the community college level in the mid to high level technician, requiring some kind of post-secondary degree. I just saw another figure that said that for the first time in 63 years, it's the lowest rate of employment participation by 16 to 24-year-olds in the country. We had an increase of about 12%, 2.4 million new entrants into that workforce this past year. If it's not happening at the community college level, and if we're not the first responders to helping our students get jobs, then, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to happen any place in the country.
And then, Jeff, you tell us about the rollout plan for the Exporting Made Easier, and is there a role for board members to generate interest or to bring it out into their communities?
Thank you very much. Yes, there is. In fact, we have launched a website, www.californiastep.org, and that lists all of our partners, all the programs we have available, as well as the ways that companies can take advantage of these services. So we are really looking for just about every communication channel and every angle to reach out to the business community and share the opportunity for these companies to actually plug into a program that's going to help them leverage very scarce marketing dollars to be able to reach international customers a lot more cost effectively. And as they do that, obviously they're going to their business should have the chance to grow and expand. The assistance that we're looking for is we are targeting a number of California's important industry clusters. Those include medical products, including health and beauty aids, but definitely medical products. We are very strong in serving the information and communications technology sector, ICT sector, as well as automation equipment, the food and ag industry, which combined is the second largest export sector for the state, and building products and environmental technologies. So we're serving a number of these sectors, and if any companies come to mind, we have a high-quality set of partners. This program, the Center for National Program, actually has received 3 presidential E-awards for export service excellence from Obama and Bush administration. So it's a tested program, and I think we provide a quality service. So anybody refer to us, we'll definitely follow up with.
Thank you. So, can I open it up?
Board members, any comments or questions? Vice President Perez.
I just want to thank you all for coming in. I think oftentimes when we think of the role of the community colleges in learning, oftentimes it's with our traditional students. And a lot of times that learning is developed through partnering with corporations in the local community to understand what the workforce needs are of tomorrow to help create that workforce. But I think equally important, we need to also help train our businesses to be more successful, because that's also an extremely important component of job creation. So I think by you coming today, and thank you, Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, because I think it's important for us to be able to see the broader picture of how we are helping the small businesses in the community not only grow their businesses, but create more jobs as well. So thank you for sharing the information today.
Member McDougall.
I'd like to offer my thanks as well. I think the scope and quality of the programs you outlined are very impressive. And my question has to do with reach and impact, reach throughout the system and the impact throughout the system, because I recognize you're both place-based, if you will. But, and Jeff, you addressed this to an extent with the website that you have available. But my question is, for example, Luann, in the instructional program, are there online opportunities, for example, that colleges can access and apply and use in their own community, as opposed to having to develop everything from scratch? Or how do we obtain the reach and impact when you have such high quality programs? That's really my question.
Well, that's something that we struggle with all the time, and we've put a lot of effort into, particularly the last 3 years. It took us a few years, for example, to mature the network. We are in the process of putting all of our training programs online. We have 4 other community colleges that are part of the network for the Los Angeles region. The idea is you can't throw enough bodies or money at the outreach that is needed for businesses. Los Angeles has the highest concentration of small businesses in the nation, so it's really critical for us that we have the right kinds of partners that are able to use their technical resources as well. So online is one of them. We're making sure that we build relationships with those that can reach out into their own communities to be able to do that. There are 6 lead centers in the state of California. They have also recently, in the last 2 years, come together in a much more coherent way, working with the governor's office as well. And the intent through that process is to be able to scale up the technical assistance that this system has to offer throughout the state. And then, for example, with the Mott Foundation project that we're involved in right now, we're developing a toolkit of about 30 replicable kinds of activities that colleges can take and institute locally on their own. We're the only college in California that is participating in that, and it's our intent to be able to share that with our system here in California.
Very impressive steps. Thank you for outlining.
Member Malamed.
Well, thank you, Vice Chancellor. I appreciate you bringing people for us to hear what they're doing. And I'm lucky I know Luann Bynum, but I always learn more about what you do every time you talk. So thank you very much. we're very lucky in Long Beach to have you working there. And very nice to hear what you're doing, because I also live close to the ports of LA and Long Beach, so that's a subject near and dear to our hearts. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Other members? I too am delighted that you came here, and I'm very glad to know about this. Now, but a couple of questions. I own a small business in San Diego, and I want to learn, how do I maybe get my product to, China or Europe or whatever it is. How do I go on one of those trade missions?
Well,
How does that
essentially,
work?
essentially what we have to do is we have to make sure that we are investing in the right companies, and the companies are investing in the right activities.
Mm-hmm.
So on the very front end, one of the things that we've developed under the CITD program is an export readiness assessment tool. So the assessment is very critical. I mean, first of all, the company has to have a viable product. They have to have a commitment to pursue the opportunity abroad, simply because it's so far, and the order turnaround time can be extended because of communication issues, because of all sorts of different things. You might miss the selling season. So the companies really have to be committed to saying, you know what, this is part of our strategic plan. We realize that, look, I'm in the auto business, and now China's the largest market in the world for automotive. We need to be there. And so we need that commitment on the front end. But once that's done, then we see somebody's serious and committed, then we can train them on how to assess what the market potential for their product is. Nobody's going to go and spend $5,000 or $6,000 to go to China, participate in a trade show, if they don't understand what the payoff is. So we get them to focus in very quickly on what is the market opportunity for their particular product. Collect the research, identify potential customers, and say, we think that, working together, that this is X or X opportunity. And once that's in hand, then people can make those investment decisions and say, it makes a lot of sense for us to go and pursue that market.
But do you actually contact potential customers in China?
Yes, we do.
You have a...
We do. In fact, we work directly with a number of organizations, including the U.S. consulates. They have commercial attachés in other countries, and it's really, they have networks set up and channels, and they have methods to be able to reach the customers.
Great. Just a second, and very quickly, do you spend a lot of time recruiting small businesses, or is it more the other way, small businesses are seeking you out?
Actually, we spend a lot of time recruiting businesses, and hopefully I don't take too much time, but I think this is a really important point, that the challenge for the United States right now, for California, is only 2% of our businesses export. If you look at a country like Germany, 50% of those companies export. And so we need to spend a lot of time illustrating the potential and illustrating what's going to happen in the future, because the future growth of the global economy, 87% of that is going to take place outside of our country. So we have to spend a lot of time getting people to orient themselves domestically to global markets.
Good. Thank you. Sounds like we need to get President Oakley to hire you a marketing firm.
Just
Good
follow up on,
work. Very informative. Thank you.
a follow up on that point. So Jeff talked about being export ready, export capable, export ready. But Luann, you've also made analogous comments about the businesses or people as they design products and services to begin to think about the exporting business early on rather than years down the road. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we have a philosophy, and I'm sure Jeff shares this too, that if somebody's going to get into a business, they ought to be thinking about global business right from the very beginning. You know, if you can do it globally, you'll do it much more successfully locally. So the whole menu of services, the SBDCs and the business development services we have in the Goldman Sachs program, we probably have right now in our Goldman Sachs program, probably about half of those businesses are businesses that are exporting or involved in international trade in some manner. They're almost intricately linked. You can hardly separate them out when you think about the regional economy here in California and the importance of international trade. And for us in Long Beach, certainly, you know, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are the third largest container ports in the country, so we spend a lot of time working with those businesses as well.
Member Ramos.
Excellent presentation. I'm hearing a lot about the demand side in terms of providing the workforce and the enterprise extension from our place of focus to these international markets, and that makes a lot of sense. That's where we have a logical role. But looking at it from the other side in terms of, you know, what the importing countries would be interested in working around, is there an interface with trade missions from China or from Europe or Latin America or other countries, or are there trade offices that exist in California? Do we have another way to connect the dots that doesn't involve having to go to them, but actually bringing them to our business opportunities?
Yeah, and maybe I can divide that in two parts. One is, yes, actually California is an ambassadorial rank for consulates. So any consular officer, general consul, has the equivalent of an ambassadorial rank. And we have about 88 different consul generals in California. The problem is that everybody wants to export. They're not promoting imports, right? So we don't get a whole lot of assistance out of the consular corps and those binational chambers and those binational enterprises. But what we do get a lot of assistance from is the federal government. You know, there is a national export initiative, and this program perfectly aligns with that, and we're very well integrated into that. The National Export Initiative ties together Department of Agriculture, Department of State, Department of Commerce, a whole bunch of these folks, and they actually help to identify those businesses that are seeking U.S. suppliers and send them our way. So we look at this as low-hanging fruit. We want to provide the opportunity for businesses that can't invest in maybe traveling abroad to be able to connect with international buyers right here at home. And we've been doing that, working with CDFA for many years. We call these inbound buyer delegations, and it's a low-cost way for them to get in touch with and meet potential customers. And it's a very effective, cost-effective way to do that. But we rely on our federal partners. We rely on private business groups and business associations. Those generally are the ones that bring those opportunities to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can add something to that, too. We have contracts. I mean, a lot of colleges do run contracts. We have a contract with the Port of Long Beach and the City of Long Beach to handle the city's international trade office. We get many contacts through the port because the port has offices, has the funding to be able to have offices overseas. Most of you are probably aware that California no longer really has offices overseas since Trade and Commerce has gone away. But those business partners that Jeff's talking about, they maintain offices overseas. The port funnels those contacts to us, and then we end up handling the incoming trade delegations that come into the port and the city for Long Beach.
So just out of curiosity, what are the, you mentioned China, which is logical. What are the countries or the regions that seem to be the best fit for these more tech-oriented or medical instrumentation or other sectors that we're talking about?
Well, you know, each segment, and many of these are what they call global segments now, so they don't necessarily have a geographic concentration because, you know, medical products are global products by nature. However, there's concentrations of big buyers in certain areas. China is obviously the big one, and tremendous growth there. You know, Germany. I mean, Europe still is very strong, even though they're going through a little bit of tumbling here and there. Brazil and India as well. So, you know, this is where we're seeing, you know, the so-called BRIC countries, Brazil, India, Russia, and China. But, Europe's very strong buyers, and quite frankly, the industries that are very successful in California are those global industries. Information technologies, medical, they are global in nature, which is really helpful.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Okay, so let me just conclude. In this kind of the question of job creation and the economy, I think it's pretty clear that there's no silver bullet in terms of, especially in terms of large companies carrying the day for us. And so the equation will have to be a combination of investments, strategic investments in terms of placing priority, such as on the small business exporting sector, and then just hard work to connect the dots, which is what I believe you all have been suggesting to us. Thank you very much for the forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5.2 has been pulled by staff. I think we have a little more work to do on that. So we will move to item 5.3, our Basic Skills Initiative. Vice Chancellor Russell and our old friend, I see Mark Wade coming back. And Vice Chancellor.
Thank you very much, President Himmelstein and Board of Governors. It's a pleasure to come to you today to give you a quick update on the Basic Skills Project. As we were moving forward quickly with the Student Success Task Force discussions and getting a lot of comments and a lot of feedback about that, I thought it important at this point to kind of update you on where we are with basic skills, because there is a lot of work that has been done in the state. And so we're very fortunate to have Mark Wade Liu working at the Chancellor's office now. He's taking on this responsibility, so he's going to give you a quick update on those statewide activities. And then we also have rolled into the basic skills funds some professional development dollars that go to the LA Community College District to provide statewide leadership on those issues. And so we have two representatives here to give a report on that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to them now for their reports.
Good morning, board members. It's nice to see you. I was very glad to be here for Tana's recognition. It's been a very enjoyable time working in the Chancellor's office. I've had lots of varied experiences, and not least is just a variety of people who I get to work with on a very close level. So I'd like to introduce Deborah Harrington and Lynn Wright. They're both with the California Community College Success Network, which is the professional development grant of the Basic Skills Initiative, and they'll be presenting shortly. So I'm going to give you a general overview. Some of you are new members on the board, maybe not quite as familiar with the Basic Skills Initiative. We're going to be focusing on two aspects of it. We're going to focus on professional development and the innovative activities that are happening at the colleges. Today, the Basic Skills Initiative is funded with approximately $20 million. Of that, approximately $19 million goes out in allocation to the colleges, and approximately $1 million goes towards professional development. The formula for allocation to the colleges is quite complicated, so I'm not going to go into that. But in short, it's based on FTES, or full-time equivalent students, in credit and non-credit basic skills. And then another factor is put in for the students who are taking basic skills who are between the ages of 18 approximately and 25. So those factor in. No college receives less than $90,000, so that's the base allocation to any college regardless of its size, and then the rest of the money is all split up based on this formula. So, next slide. So, the professional development aspect, as I said, is called the California Community College Success Network. I'm going to turn that over to Lynn and Deborah in a moment. And then the part about the colleges and what they're going to be doing, I'll talk about that second. So, I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right. Good morning. Well, very briefly.
Please,
Got it.
Yes, press your button and introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Harrington. I am the Dean for Student Success for the LA Community College District, but I'm also the project administrator for the Basic Skills Initiative Professional Development Grant, which, as you all know, is called 3CSN. In any case, just a very brief history. The plan to create a professional development network that reached across all 112 colleges was done through a series of convenings in which we had all the stakeholders from inside of our system. So we had CEOs and CSSOs and CIOs, and most importantly, the Academic Senate and other faculty practitioners, to create a design where we could get out into the field and look for high-impact, effective practices that would move student success forward. So with 3CSN, we have primarily 3 objectives, and I'm just going to put them up there so I can talk just a little bit about what those mean as well. So one of the things that we really wanted to be able to do, because California is such a big state, is we knew that we could get in and work with people face-to-face, but we wanted to create also an infrastructure whereby we could work with them virtually. And we have built all of that around very easy-to-use, low-cost, open educational resources that are online. And so what we do in achieving these 3 objectives is that we're really designing this to build not just you go in and do a workshop. Instead, it's a community of practice that's ongoing professional development, that is rooted in action research, and that is really designed to achieve not only student success awareness, but this thing that we call equity-minded completion. There's our website, so I hope when you get an opportunity to check the website out. So we focused, beginning in early 2010, as our work moved forward, and we really began to think deeply. Out in the field, if you haven't heard about it, there's a large national student success completion agenda. And so what we decided to do is to really focus on that student success completion agenda by thinking about it in terms of momentum points. And these are key kinds of well, Lynn's going to explain it in a minute, but let's just put it this way. They're completions that drive 3 things. We've put them into 3 categories. It's student persistence, especially the first year, because once students can reach a certain amount of units, they are shown to go on and, what do I do here? Don't send? Good. So it's the first year, especially with persistence. Student acceleration through the developmental sequence. And it's not just that we want them to complete the developmental sequence. We want them to complete the gatekeeper course. We want them to get to the college level English and math and complete it. And then the third one is this idea of student completion of certificates, degrees, and or transfer. Right? So it's really, really simple. Student persistence, right? Student acceleration, and student completion. And I am going to turn it over to Lynn, who is running the day-to-day operations, and she's going to get into the details of how we're doing this.
So I'm Lynn Wright, and I teach English at Pasadena City College. Former Chancellor was our president, and I'm sorry Mr. Baum has left. He is our board member there. But anyway, I'll talk to him at our next board meeting. Momentum points, I think you probably know, this is, I guess the best resource to go would be Tom Bailey, who is at the Community College Research Center, Teachers College, Columbia University, has published extensively about this. Others have talked about it, of course. And it's just by looking at the data, we can tell by looking at data, if students do X, Y, Z, that we see they move on. So momentum points are these ideas that if they do these things, we can see that students are propelled on to the next level. And that's what we need to get them to complete and to be successful and to go out into those businesses and do what we need them to do as a society for our economy and our society, but also for them and their families. So that's what momentum points are. And then again, we look at data to see how the students are doing around that. And one is, it allows us to look at students and see what they are actually doing and where they're getting stuck, okay? And more importantly, we can look specifically, not just all students, but we can look at it we can disaggregate this data and see who's really stumbling. And this is where we begin to address the achievement gap and really get to our equity-minded completion issues. And we'll show you a little later a tool that we have invested in and that will soon be hosted in the Data Mart for the Chancellor's Office that will allow faculty to get their hands on this data very quickly and really begin to pinpoint where their gaps are to really better address, target the students and the programs and the courses that need to be addressed. So our primary strategies, we work on two basic levels. One is on a macro structural organizational level. Faculty need to be involved on campuses in the structure and the processes and the procedures of those campuses, of their own campuses. And so we want to create a greater awareness and dialogue around this so that they can do what they need to do to help that college create clearer pathways for students. So we know, I've been working with first-year experienced students for 10 years now, it's really hard to get into college. It's really hard to get through that whole matriculation process. We even talk about matriculation. That's our word. It scares me even. You know, it's not the student word. They don't know what that means. So how do we realize what they get through? Because the ones sitting in our classrooms are already incredible survivors with great persistence and tenacity. It makes you wonder about all the ones who didn't get through. And yet we still know once they get in the class, there's still a lot of stumbling blocks. So there's a lot for us to look at. And we really need to help faculty become conscious of who our students are and what are their stumbling blocks, and then help their college investigate that and create solutions to help students through that. So that's how we're doing on the macro side, help faculty become aware at that level. On the micro side, of course, in our own classrooms, what are we doing and what can we do to make it more student-friendly so that we can think holistically across the curriculum, all of us supporting our students all the way. It shouldn't be that I have to send them to student support for any sort of student support. Of course, there's all kinds of great resources over in student services for them, but as a faculty member, I need to be able to know what's there and to shape assignments and other things so that students can go there, right? I can tell them there's a library, but I need to take them to the library. I need to get them to interact in the library. So how on the micro level can we get teachers to begin to think about what they're doing and embed that in their classrooms? We're doing that through faculty research, inquiry, backward design. We always want to start with the student and the goal and then do the activities. Sometimes we get so caught up in the activities that we forget what's the end goal of all of this. So we do that. And of course, we're big on piloting, measuring, assessing, reporting, and just keeping that cycle going, continuous improvement. So I've already said one of the things we're really focusing on the classroom level are syllabus and curricular redesign. So we talk a lot about that. We've had some workshops this semester on that, and we will have some follow-up workshops in the spring. Acceleration Initiative, Deborah's already referred to that. It's a very, very powerful initiative, a strategy of we look at students, how long it takes to get through their basic skills sequence. It's a long time, and most don't make it. It's sort of, and then there was none. And so how can we look at that and change that so students can get through faster, but also with the knowledge that they need. So it's one thing to go through the textbook page by page. We heard the guy talking about that yesterday with Inkling. It's another thing to really have and own that material and be able to use it and apply it. So we're very interested in that through the Acceleration Initiative, and we have an Acceleration newsletter that we can distribute to you later, which tells you about it. And finally, we're heavily invested in contextualized teaching and learning. Again, it's very responsive to students, who they are, what they need. It's just in time. Rather than the front loading, here, learn everything you need. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know on the first day. I don't learn well that way. Most people don't. How do we learn to embed just-in-time learning, reading, writing, numeracy throughout the curriculum? This is just a graphic. This is one of our high-leverage, high-impact strategies, and I want to show that contextualization reaches across all three momentum points.
And if I could just interject that the momentum points, we think align nicely with a lot of the main objectives that or recommendations that you saw in the Student Success Task Force recommendations. So that's another way to maybe look at some of the work that we're doing and how it relates there. You want to go on?
There you go. So what do we do this last summer, summer and fall? We're coming to the end of fall here. We had a Basic Skills Institute Leadership. That was our Basic Skills Leadership Institute. We actually call it BSILI. B-S-I-L-I, BSILI. It's an intensive 4.5-day workshop. This was our third annual one. It's tied into projects that these people go back to their campuses and do, and we stay in contact with them and we follow up with them. Some of them were doing acceleration, for example. I think about 14 of the colleges that showed up were invested in following through with acceleration. Others were invested in reading apprenticeship, which is a reading across the curriculum strategy that they were going to take back to their campuses and grow out. We had an ESL summit, and that was an initial meeting to get people to talk about some of the issues with ESL and what strategies we can use. And they're doing some research right now, and they will have a ESL conference in the spring. So part of this summit was to identify needs and then develop a conference to address them. We have LINKS 4, and LINKS is our acronym for Learning in Networks for Knowledge Sharing. And we have now had the fourth. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. This fourth one was about our Momentum Point 1, redesigning for a strong start. And again, focused in the morning about what we could do at the macro level to make our systems of intake more effective for our students. And then in the afternoon, focused on our syllabus, which is the first thing students see about us. It's like our face. You know, this is what they see of us. And they're often quite scary. You know, where are we creating this warm environment that students feel like comfortable to come to us as a resource?
And they often don't set out a map for success for the class, which they need to do.
So that's what we looked at with LINKS 4. We offered basic skills coordinator workshops. Mark, Wade, Lou, and I kind of went around and had all the basic skills coordinators come and talk about their action plans, how to rethink and realign their action plans with their activities, how to think about measuring those activities. We will follow up in the spring on that as well, because there's a great need to help basic skills coordinators and other student success leaders understand what to measure, how to assess, how to report out, how to determine what's effective. Acceleration Community of Practice. Deborah's already talked about Community of Practice, but we have a very intense 6-month that was an application-based Community of Practice and Acceleration. These colleges, what are there, 19 of them, are currently piloting acceleration. They spent the summer working together collaboratively to design these and to build the curriculum. They continue to meet over the 6 months to report out how it's going.
But importantly, that means that there's at least 2 courses in math or English that are offered in an accelerated manner, taking place right now.
That's right. And in one case, I think 13 math courses will be piloted in one college alone in the spring. So we are very eager, this is new, to see what the results will be of this. We have a reading apprenticeship community of practice where people are going to learn about how to embed reading across the curriculum and then how to grow that in their classes and across their campuses. Finally, we were at the Student Success Conference, and we talked about momentum points that shape completion so that we can spread the word and get more. That's kind of our casting our net out to bring more people in and involved in the discussion. And we offer ongoing technical assistance face-to-face, but also online. So again, I've kind of already told you some of the spring things that we're continuing. The leading through from the middle, we're very excited about that. The faculty leaders and other directors needing to come together and talk about, use their expertise that they already have, but get it all together in a room and see what kind of exciting things happen when that happens. Do you want to say something? Yeah.
I just really wanted to get to this part.
Yeah, let's go here. This is our new tool.
Yes. And I don't know, are we...
It should be live. It should be
yeah?
live.
Okay.
Embedded.
All right. So go ahead. I want to talk about this.
So while we were doing acceleration and in our LINKS 2, we showed folks our transfer velocity tool. And I don't know if you know that that exists, but it is on Datamart. And a lot of faculty don't know that they have at their fingertips that kind of data about how our students are doing in that pipeline who have said that they want to transfer. And of course, I'm in an environment with mostly basic skills instructors, and they have no access to that kind of data. And so we thought, well, why don't we invest in creating another tool using a similar platform so faculty can track basic skills students. So this is a basic skills cohort tracking tool. It is just about ready to go. I think we're ready for a 2.0 version of Datamart, correct? Yeah. But we have a beta thing to show you here. It's very easy. And one of the things we noticed in the Basic Skills Initiative is that we can throw all kinds of data out to faculty. But just like our students, it's not meaningful if they haven't asked the question, if they haven't looked for it and wanted it. It's overwhelming, actually. But this is a tool that's really easy. Even I can do it. And it has some pop-down windows, and you can select your college. We selected Antelope Valley College. We selected, the cohort starting fall 2009 through spring 2011. We are looking in mathematics. We're looking at 3 levels below transfer.
Do I need to pick anything?
No, this is telling me what 3 levels below transfer are categorized in these 3, and I can disaggregate and choose one in particular if I want. So if I know my curriculum, I can say, this is the main class, I want to look at this. And then I press the button, and voila, it will show me that. So it tells me that in spring 2009, at 3 levels below math, we had 370 students, sorry. The enrollments are how many people repeated. So of those 370, quick math, 80 of them actually had to repeat that class 3 levels below. And of that total of 370, 333, which is actually pretty good, Antelope Valley should be commended, actually passed that 3rd level course. Then we want to know, the next important thing is, of those 333, how many went on to the next level? This is the same cohort. Of those 333, 251 continued, right? I can't, I'm sorry, the numbers are small. Again, the enrollments show those who had to repeat that 2nd level course, and ultimately 199 passed the 2nd level. So of the 370, we have 199 still in play. Then how many go on to the next level where they're getting close? This would give them, passing this next course would give them the ability to have an AA or AS degree. We see that 146, is that the number over there?
Yep.
Yeah, 146 moved on. Of course, we started with 370.
And,
the final number is 117. 117 of the 370 actually made it through the course they needed for math for an AA or AS degree.
And of course now, for your AA, for the new cohorts, you need to have freshman comp, which is English 1A here. But ultimately, to get through the college level, only 42 make it.
That's in math.
And that's a pretty good number. That's high.
So the other thing is, you can look at any of the other colleges and see how you're doing. And the reason why we know Antelope Valley looks good is because we've looked at some of the others, and we also know our own data from our own schools.
But again, the exciting thing is that this is a tool that we can use across the state, and it's easily accessible, and faculty, even I can go on and do it.
And at the bottom, you can see how you can disag. So you can do the gender, I can look by age group, I can look by ethnicity, I can pull out other ways to look at specific groups, and that was an add-on. We did a simple one first, and then we invested more money because we thought this data would be very, very important.
And we should say Patrick Perry was instrumental in helping us develop.
Absolutely. This was all done in partnership with the Chancellor's Office. So that tool will be available to everyone within, I guess, a month. Yes. Finally, you want to talk about, you want me to? Okay. 3CSN has also supported the non-credit accountability task force. I'll let Mark talk about that.
Yeah, just very briefly. This is another small project. As you know, non-credit doesn't have grades. And so one of the things that we have struggled to figure out is how do you measure progress in non-credit? And so through 3CSN, we have funded a small task group and a small pilot project where they are working on using a test set of indicators, seeing how well it works locally. We are finding out very interesting things about the interaction with non-credit and their MIS data reporting that needs to be worked out. We're finding out whether faculty are comfortable with using a set of indicators. They have a trial set right now that they're working with, and they're trying to figure out what recommendation do they want to make at the state level. So we're probably going to be bringing some Title V regulation recommendations in the spring so that we can provide some type of progress indication for non-credit. And this is really important for non-credit because they realize, for example, right now, the CDCP report, which is on all those certificates in non-credit, doesn't really reflect what's happening in any of their classrooms. It shows persistence, but they can't really show very much else because right now MIS doesn't really collect anything else. So this is going really well under the leadership of Janet Fulks at Bakersfield College.
So we've put up here our theory of change, but ultimately, as you can see, doing this kind of work and working with the faculty and empowering them and having them recognize what the high-impact practices are and to build those up. And a lot of these have to do with curricular design, which, by the way, are not costly. I mean, it's just redesigning what you do. This, in turn, is going to produce greater success. And now,
This is basically what we ask faculty to do. We are going as everywhere we can to get people out, the word out, and of course we're big on networking. We want them to share with others. We want them to join our network. We want them to attend our events. We have community of practice applications that we are going to encourage people to apply for. Technical assistance. I get asked to come in and talk and work with committees, and sometimes just having an outsider there really can change the dialogue going on, and I'm happy to do it, and I learned so much. And we have a network of about 10 other coordinators across the state that help us do that as well. And then finally, though that's the last one, sorry, invite a rep onto your campus, and we can help them discover what their needs are, get inquiry groups going on, get action research done, help them with their evaluation, and be more successful. We are here to empower faculty to empower their students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know that you're all wondering how all of this feeds in together. And in the Basic Skills Initiative, the professional development part rolls into what happens on the campuses, and then the campuses work with things that shows us what we need to do next year with the Professional Development Network. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what they're doing at the local colleges, a brief thing. So first of all, I want to talk about what they're reporting at the current time. So what do they tell us when they give us an accounting for the money that they get? Well, they do their expenditure reports. Those are required. And I'm going to show you in a little while what their top expenditures are in terms of activities. We're also working really hard to work with the colleges on this whole idea of looking at data. So the cohort tool is going to be an amazing thing for them to work with. But a lot of faculty are just not as familiar with working with connecting data with what's happening in their classroom. So one of the things we asked for this year was take a look at your ARC data. What's happening with basic skills and what you're doing with your basic skills money, and how do you think the two are related? It's kind of a baby step because, as any discussion will show, moving a state metric on basic skills is very, very difficult, and even moving the ones at the local colleges is very difficult because, as we have seen, a lot of the things that people do are pilot projects. That means you're doing one course or two courses, whereas your basic skills data reflects your entire curriculum. So it was a baby step to get them to start looking at their ARC data and to also know, I think, for the colleges to realize that what's reported in their ARC data is what everybody external to our system looks at. And I think it's important for them to recognize, oh, they're not looking at our little report from our one class in our department. They're looking at this big metric. And I think that's important for them to know. We also asked them to do give a little bit of research, do some study on 2 of their basic skills funded activities, and that has allowed me to kind of see who's doing some really excellent things. Lynn and I have presented now, this is our 3rd presentation together. At the CIO conference, we were able to share examples of colleges that were doing really well, so that colleges that are having a few more challenges know who they can contact to find out, wow, they have this great program, we're trying to do the same thing, who can we talk to get more information about how they're doing all of those things. And finally, in their action plans, in previous years, the action plans were every single thing that they did. And while I think that was helpful on a local planning level, on a state level, I really don't need to see all of their activities. And the plans ranged from 2 pages to small phone books. And so I asked them to focus on 5. And again, we are building in the whole idea of what are you measuring? How do you know that you've achieved the outcome that you want? We're really trying to bring in that idea that Lynn raised before, where you set your goal, you figure out what you're going to measure to know that you've reached that goal, and then you plan your activities. Whereas in the past, people are mostly focused on, oh, this is what everybody says is really cool. Let's do that, and then figure out what it's doing. Whereas you really should be thinking about what do you want to achieve, what activities might lead you there, and of course the measurements will show you whether or not you've been there. So, a little bit of just information. The planned expenditures for this year, you can see the summary is 38% of the colleges, 38% of the money that they're planning to spend in this coming year is on supplemental instruction and tutoring, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I know that the Student Success Task Force recommendation focuses a lot on innovations and what people are doing, and I think it's very reassuring to see that our colleges are really working hard to do practices that maybe they have not done in the past. 50% is going to advisement and counseling, 40% is for coordination of these programs, and 12% is program and curriculum planning and development. Before we go on, I do want to mention one thing. You're probably going, gee, when I looked at that breakdown, where is contextualization? Where is acceleration? And those are so new that these are things that people have been working on for the past year. So you're not going to actually see anything from them until next year's report, because they're all doing their pilots right now. So if you're saying, I really want to know about that, you're not going to see anything because they're all embarking on their pilots this current year.
Mark?
Yes?
I need to ask you to think about wrapping up here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. These are the top expenditure categories by effective practice. We can skip on. You have that on your slide. And these are the promising interventions that they have been doing at their colleges. Supplemental instruction. Let's see. A lot of tutoring through supplemental instruction. Let's see. Go on to the next one. Supervised tutoring, which is not terribly innovative, but it's something that people are taking a lot of advantage of the basic skills money to really offer for students in specific classes, both in non-credit and in credit. We have supplemental learning assistance, also authorized through Title V, and people are working with that very much to have special activities for helping students in specific courses. Learning communities are very popular right now. People are really pairing, again, just like the recommendation in the Student Success Task Force, pairing student success courses with regular content courses. So they're getting all aspects of basic skills, not just content, but how to become an effective student. And then finally, many of them are working on curricular design. It's interesting, the reports that I've gotten this time are focused mostly on compression, and we're seeing two things. Compression is where you take a regular semester course and you squish it and offer it in a much shorter time frame, but you don't lop off any hours. Acceleration is really focused on removing dropout points between courses, so you may do much more innovative things with courses. So that's what's happening with the basic skills allocation, and we would always like more money. I think one of the biggest problems that the colleges face at this point, when we talk about innovation and practices, we often look at the three things. We look at sustainability, and what people have started, most of them are probably able to sustain pretty well. They have figured out how to get it going. They have their people in place. They have professional development to help them do that. Customization is a very important thing about doing an effective practice at a college, and our colleges are nothing if not innovative in how they apply something. The biggest problem I think that we face in everything that we're doing on the state, in movement on the ARC report, in trying to achieve what we hope to achieve through the recommendations of the Student Success Task Force, is scalability. Scalability, unfortunately, is difficult because there are fixed costs for almost every successful intervention that people are embarking on. And beyond a certain level of overhead for coordination, every time you add another course, you add another student, you are actually, you just have to have more resources. So that's going to be an ongoing challenge for our system as we move forward, regardless how the recommendations come out in achieving student success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Chancellor has some questions and comments, followed by Vice President Perez.
Thank you very much. As you know, in the Student Success Task Force, one of the things that we're looking at is basic skills. Unfortunately, a lot of times we look at some fairly dismal results. That is, if you, I don't know, for instance, maybe you can give me a quick answer to this. If someone starts at the 4th level, what is the normal percentage that persists all the way to college level in either math or English?
A more typical one in math is 3 levels below, and it can usually be around 3%.
Yeah. So some way, somehow, we need to improve that, and of course that's one of the things that the task force is looking at. I'm not an expert in this field. Fortunately, my wife taught English and therefore taught basic skills, so I have a little instruction in my own home about this, but I know that this is a big issue. Now, what we need more than anything else, because you know there's disputes going back and forth, does this work, does that work, we need some very controlled groups, the same types of students. how much more effective is contextualization? How much more effective is acceleration? How much more effective is compression? All of these techniques. And we got to make sure that we have control groups. But we want to listen to you, because one of the things that we're going to do in the Student Success Task Force, we're not going to, obviously we're not going to mandate curriculum. That's the purview of the faculty. But we are going to suggest and encourage some innovation in basic skills. And so I want information that is, number one, shows us some innovative practices that tend to work, but also are impervious and can be proven by data. Because we've got some varying opinions out there, as you well know.
Well, I think, sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
The newsletter that we're going to pass out to you on acceleration shows quite a bit of data from Chabot College. And also from Los Medanos. I mean, that is some hard data that has a control group. We have students who have taken this regular pathway and then students who are taking the accelerated pathway. And so that's a start.
Well, that's what we need.
Yeah.
And
then we'll have some from all of our pilots that are running across the state.
And always when you innovate, you get resistance. I've been doing this way for 20 years, and who are you to tell me that I ought to change my methodology of teaching basic skills? But I guess I've been deeply concerned when I look at some of those kind of results you're talking about. I mean, when you say that starting somebody at the third level ends up with a 3% success rate, sort of makes me think maybe we ought to do something a little different from that. So I want us to give some real thought to that. So that's why I was very interested in your presentation, but I'd be very interested in the kind of information you could give, because one of the things I said when we were talking about the Student Success Task Force, some of this will be legislation, some of this will be regulation, but some of it will simply be, these are good practices. Look at ways in which you might put them into effect at a college.
Vice President.
Thank you for the update. I was glad to see that you're utilizing data to help understand the success of the students. So I have a couple questions for you around that. One is, are there strategies being developed around the students that are not making it through the system? So is that one of the takeaways? The other piece is, I love, Mark, when you talked about starting with outcomes first. What are the outcomes you're looking for, and setting goals, and then developing strategies around that to ensure student success around this. But if you were to look at the program in context of what you're doing right now, what are your outcome goals associated with it? I mean, can you actually say that there's a hope through this process to increase from 3% to a certain percentage? I would really love to understand what your outcome goals are as well.
Well, we're working with faculty, and faculty get to determine their goals. But what we do is when we set it up, we ask them to follow the procedure of what we call backward design, which is name your goal and then shoot for that. But they need to, through inquiry and action research, determine what their goal is. And that's going to be local depending on their college and their issue. So they can use gap analysis, which we discussed in our Links 1, the first Learning and Networks for Knowledge Sharing that we did. Again, using the data to see who's not getting through, where are the big gaps. And again, supplemental instruction is based on this as well. They look to see who's not getting through certain gateway courses and develop the intervention to address that specifically, and have had good success across the nation on this. So the same thing, colleges need to start looking at their data, looking at where their students aren't passing, looking at achievement gap issues, and then addressing their interventions to that, and then measuring that. So that is, we are trying to reframe that, and that is what we're going to focus on in spring. We realize that what I've been fortunate to be working with outside evaluators for about 10 years now by running different programs and having outside money to pay for these outside evaluators. And I guess I've learned something. And so what I now think is obvious isn't so obvious to others. So we are going to work much harder with faculty to get them to understand that it's not that difficult. If an English professor can do it, you know, if I can do it, anybody can do it, really. And really just start to look in those terms. I think we just haven't had to be able to, we haven't had to frame those issues, those questions before. So the dialogue around faculty is really important. This is rethinking who we are as instructors. This is really thinking that our students can do it and that we can help them do it. And one of the places that starts is by us looking at the data, looking at who our students are, asking the right questions, and then we can try to find the right answers. And before, we read a bunch of things, these are effective practices, but we never aligned it with what our issue was. And so in a way, it's sort of, if I may say, sort of a crapshoot. Let's just throw them out there and see what we get. And now we've been doing that for a while, and it's like, okay, let's be a little bit more methodical about this. And that's what we're really trying to do. And that's, I think, what our new take on this. And then the networking, the power of networking. We have about 80 colleges who have been involved in one or more of our acceleration workshops. We have 33 colleges wholly committed to doing this and piloting something on their campuses. Now, this is just this academic year, so we're not, but that's something. And when you compare that to last year, that's huge. So we're hoping that this continues to grow, because this is how things work in the state of California in our community college systems. It's about the faculty and what the faculty are engaged in, intrigued in. So we try to light the fire and fan the fire, keep it going, so that they can continue to talk among themselves, try things out, and we can see that some people are really ignited on it. But we will have to wait, because we've just now started collecting the data.
So lastly, is there any thought to actually attaching a portion of funding to obtaining the outcomes? So they're starting with setting a goal, but is there any thought to actually holding back a portion to actually whether or not they obtain the goals?
Short answer, please. We are under time commitment here. Thank you, Mark. Member McDougall, if it's really quick, because we've got to take a short break before the superintendent.
Really quick, but I don't want to pass this by quickly.
Okay.
I think this is one of the most important presentations that we have had as a Board of Governors.
Hear, hear.
And I'd like to state that I think it was an outstanding presentation, and I say that for two reasons. A great example of collaboration between the Chancellor's Office and the Academic Senate. Second, I think your specific sense of enthusiasm for the project, the competence that you bring to it, very impressive. Second point is the assumption exists, at least in my mind and I think in the minds of most of us, that no one wants student success more than our faculty. No one. That being said, to accomplish it with the challenges that we have with an open access policy is not easy. And what is needed is a structure that enables that commitment to student success to be actualized. And what I saw here today was a wonderful structure. Not that it will not be refined and developed, but it is there all the way along the line. It's heavily research-based. It's got great references to it. And it gives one a great sense of confidence that what we want to achieve on the student success task force side has a model for how that will be achieved in practice. And I just very enthused about it. I think your theoretical position about faculty, I want to just quickly come to that. The theory of change is tremendously valid, and it's at the core of what you're doing. I would hope you would get a couple of doctoral students who are interested in a dissertation topic seriously to test that out, because it is a core concept, and I think it deserves to be tested more fully. But very impressed. I think this is the center, represents a core for faculty learning and support, both of which are critical for us being able to move ahead in implementing the student success report. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break,
We can talk
and
to you.
it seems like we have a lot of interest, so members feel free to interact, but we'll take a 10-minute break and come back with the superintendent.
I agree. This is sort of